All right, everyone, welcome to the webinar and hope you're having a great afternoon. So we'll kick this off. My name's Pat, for those of you that don't know me, from the training team, and I'm also joined by Markus. So Markus is one of our solutions engineers. Markus looks after most of the solutions related to the GEN24, GEN24 Plus, Verto and Verto Plus series once it comes out, and now the Reserva. So when it comes to anything regarding hybrid inverters, energy storage solutions, etc., he's our resident expert here at Fronius Australia. So yeah, just like to welcome him. Thanks, Markus, for joining us and sharing your time and your expertise. I'm sure the audience probably have a few questions for you, hopefully nothing too curly, but I'm sure you'll be able to answer them. But yeah, nice to have you here.
Thank you, very excited to be here.
Awesome, all right, so we'll get into it. What's on the agenda? So essentially, we'll start off with a brief overview of the Reserva battery. So I'll run you through that. We'll look at the inverters that it's compatible with. We'll look at some technical specifications and then some installation considerations. Then we'll look at the strengths and the features associated with the product. And then lastly, we'll just wrap up with a summary. Okay, so looking at the battery, it's a modular system. So, you can start off with a small amount of storage, add on more as needed, and we'll cover that in a little bit more depth later on. But it essentially starts at 2 modules and then goes up to 5 modules max in a single stack. So that's roughly 6.3 kilowatt hours to 15.8 kilowatt hours. It's a high voltage battery, so that's what the GEN24 Plus series and the Verto Plus series work with. So yeah, DC coupling, high voltage technology allows for those high efficiencies with very minimal losses. In terms of the battery chemistry, this lithium iron phosphate, that's been around for a while. It's proven to be a very safe battery chemistry, and also with long lifetimes that you can get out of it. And then lastly, something that's very important, becoming more of an important topic nowadays, especially in the commercial sector, but it's full European design and support, but that data security that's what I meant, is becoming very important. But we're very happy to have our own battery coming out of Fronius, so to speak, with all the support, etc. All right, so looking at inverter compatibility. So we've got the GEN24 Plus series. I'll touch on those models in the next slide, but a lot of you would be familiar with that by now. We will also have the Verto Plus series, so that's a larger 3-phase hybrid range that will be available next year. So those of you across the ditch over in New Zealand, you're going to be a bit luckier to get them a bit sooner than us in Australia, because you have different regulations. But essentially it'll be there in the first half of next year for Australia. Markus, in terms of the Verto Plus series, any differences from the current Verto series that people should know about, or is it obviously, apart from it being hybrid?
Yeah, there will be some slight differences. So they have similar power classes. So the Verto Plus will come in power classes from 15 to 33.3. So starting with 15, 17.5, 20, 25, 30, and 33.5. I'll have 3 MPPTs for PV and 1 battery output, which can do up to 50 amps.
Okay, cool. So one of the trackers is used for the battery. Well, one of those, we have 4 trackers usually, but now we're going to have 1.
Correct.
So you'll have a battery input instead. Okay, cool. All right, so looking at the GEN24 Plus portfolio, so you have the Primo GEN24, which is single phase version. So that comes in power classes 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, and 10. And then in the 3-phase version, the SIMO GEN24, you've got power classes 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 10, and then 12, which is the newest model, and has SC in the bracket there. So SC stands for superior current, as it can take a little bit higher current on those trackers and inputs. All right, so that one of the things that we want people to know, as some of you might already know, is that the full backup function, as it's called, and we're not going to go into a whole lot of detail on backup, the different backup functions. We've covered that in other webinars, or at least one that I can think of off the top of my head recently. But that full backup function doesn't work with the smaller range of the SIMO GEN24 3 to 5 kilowatt. Markus, do you want to speak to that and why that's the case?
Yep, very good question. Thanks for that. So the case is because it's a smaller 3-phase inverter. So let's just, for example, take the SIMO 3. So we would need to split the full backup per phase. So that would mean it's less than 1 kilowatt per phase, which doesn't really make sense. So the use case would not really be there. But I can assure you there are still other options out there. For example, you can use PV Point or our latest PV Point Advanced, where we do have application guides available on our homepage, where you can pretty much wire up one single phase circuit where you can utilize up to 3 kilowatt, which is also quite handy in some spaces and sometimes.
Yeah, cool. And we have run a webinar on the PV Point Advanced function as well. So if any of you want to see that, that's available on YouTube as well. Okay, so looking at the technical specifications, I'll hand it over to Markus. So he's going to run us through this section. Markus, off to you.
Let's do a bit of a deeper dive into the technical specification on the Reserva battery. So let's have a look at the module specification for the Reserva. So the nominal voltage per module is 102 volts. The usable energy per battery module is 3.15 kilowatt hours. And as you can see on the bottom here, there is a little table where the voltage gets pretty much stacked up because the battery modules are connected in series, and that's why the voltage increases the more modules you would have in a stack. The weight is around 33.5 kilogram. The Reserva itself has nice handles to actually stack the batteries on top of each other safely as 1 or 2 person setup, depending on how many people you are on site. The possible temperature range. So physically, the Reserva can do -20 to +55. So outside of that range, the battery will derate to 0 output in terms of charging and or discharging. However, we do recommend the optimal operation temperature. For max performance service life, we do recommend to stay roughly between 15 and 30 degrees Celsius. That'll increase the life and performance quite significantly. Therefore, we would always recommend an internal installation if it's possible, because as mentioned before, it is better in terms of the performance for the battery itself. Let's have a look at the charging and discharging power and capabilities in respective to our inverters which we have out there. So let's have a look at the SIMO range, so our 3-phase inverters and max charge and discharge rate. So if you have, for example, a look at the 12SC with 2 battery modules in the 6.3 kilowatt hour version, we're able to charge and discharge the Reserva with 4.5 kilowatt. And if we look at the biggest setup with or the biggest setup with 1 tower at least, so we touch on multi-tower setups in a minute, we will be able to charge and discharge with 11.26 kilowatt hours, which is quite impressive. Let's have a look at our single phase options or single phase inverters going from 3 to 10 on our Primo GEN24 Plus. If we look at the Primo 10, for example, we will be able to install max 3 battery modules with 9.5 kilowatt hours per tower and have a charging and discharging capability of 6.75 kilowatts.
Markus, on that point, so I've come across some installers. A few people have reached out already to ask why the Reserva is capped at 9.5 kilowatt hours in the single phase, and if that's going to be increased in the future on this particular version of the Gen24, the Primo Gen24 Plus, or whether there's going to be a new version coming, etc. So can you speak to that?
Yes, good pickup. Thanks for that. So currently we're limited to the 9.5 kilowatt hours. Moving forward in the future, hopefully beginning next year, we will have a solution where we slightly increase the capacity for some inverters in some setups and some possibilities. The reason being for the limitation comes purely down to the voltage window of the respective inverters. So the Reserva has a voltage window of 371 to 454 or even higher, and the Primo DC voltage range is just unfortunately limited. That's why we can't do any more without compromising functionality. On the other hand, on our Simon, our three-phase inverters, the voltage window is a little bit better, is wider. Hence, we can install more batteries and have more capacity on this setup. Let's look about the max storage capacity. Sorry, Pat?
No, I said all right. Oh, good. Yeah, you go on.
Yeah. Yeah, let's have a look at the max storage capacity in every possible setup. As we discovered before on the Primo and our single phase inverters, we can do 3 battery modules, so it gives us 9.5 kilowatt hours. On our SIMOs, we can go to 15.8 per tower, similar to the Verto Plus. So this would give us a max setup in a multi-tower scenario for 3-phase with a whopping 63.2 kilowatt hours, and in a single phase scenario, 38 kilowatt hours. Please note that all stacks, all parallel stacks, must have the same size in terms of battery modules. Another great advantage is actually that we don't need to have a combiner box installed with the system.
Yeah, that's great. So they're going to save a bit on that combiner box, and then also, I guess, installation time, cabling, aesthetics, etc.
Absolutely, save time, space, money. The install will go way faster as well.
Awesome.
Now I would like to show you the dimensions of the actual Reserva. Sometimes it's difficult, to see a product on the screen without having it seen in real life. That's why we try to do our best to showcase it here, how the Reserva actually looks. On the right-hand side, you see how slim the battery itself actually is, and we have a look at the sizing as well. So if we look at the middle picture, we will see the BMU, so pretty much the battery management unit and all the safety and control functionality will be in there in the top bit. So the battery always has this BMU on top, and below you have battery modules, so 2 to 5 battery modules in the max setup. On the left-hand side in picture 1, you can see the base. So the base can have a distance towards the wall from 50 to 70 mil, so 5 to 7 centimeters, to give you a bit of flexibility in terms of wiring, and make sure the base is level, that the whole tower is nice onto the wall and doesn't fall over or will be not straight. If we look at the different sizes, so for example, if we use the smallest setup, the 6.3, we have 2 battery modules, the BMU on top. The total height of the system is 860 mil, so 86 centimeters. Looking at the other end of the spectrum, so the tallest setup with 5 battery module and BMU would be 1.6 meters. Let's have a bit of a deeper dive into the installation considerations for the Reserva and what would be interesting and important to actually know before the installation, before you go and install. Location. Let's talk about location. So the Reserva is an IP65 indoor and outdoor protected system. Just a refresher, the IP65 actually means, so the 6 means it's completely dustproof, and the 5 means it's protected against water jets from every imaginable angle. Humidity. So the system is able to work through 5 to 95% humidity, which will be very important for our customers up north. So we thought about them as well, that the system can still operate and perform also within a pretty wide temperature range in terms of performance, -20 to 55. In terms of the installation, you see the pictures here on the right-hand side, so the temperature, the IP class. So the system always needs to be fully protected from the sun and shouldn't be exposed to any sun. So it needs to be shaded or in cover. And also, just in case you're not aware, it shouldn't, snow or ice on the battery as well, if that's the case anywhere in Australia. On the bottom picture, we see the 300 mil distance. That's something we cover in some later slides. So that's pretty much a manufacturer recommendation to have 30 centimeters in between towers, but that's not the 5.39 required 600 mil to non-associated devices around the product. Starting from the bottom, starting from the base pretty much in terms of mounting. So you see here the base on the left-hand side, which is beautifully done. So you see where is left and where is right to ensure that it's always set in the right location and you don't have the LED bar facing towards the wall. Ensure that the base is level. So we have these 4 base level screws, which you can adjust, that the system is level, and it also says on top, I hope you can see my mouse here, the base and the distance towards the wall, which gives you a very good indication on where things need to go. It's a modular concept, no wires are required, so you just pretty much stack the modules on top of each other. Also a very nice thing, which is also in the box on the right-hand side, you can see that here, a colleague from Fronius International in Austria showed us this, nice drilling paper, more or less, where you can see the actual height and where you would need to drill the holes in the different sizes and the different setups. On the left-hand side, we can see the mounting brackets on the module itself, so the module towards the wall. So with this modular concept, it's very easy and fast to be installed. So every second module would need to have a wall bracket installed to it. Looking at the secure mounting in between the modules. So you stack the module on top of each other, and every module would have this little brackets here, which you need to mount on the left and right hand side of the battery with a T30 screwdriver and a max torque of 5 Newton meters. So relatively simple and quick to install. Let's have a look at the actual cabling and where goes what. So if you stand in front of the Reserva, on the right-hand side is where we would have all the cabling and wiring. Let's go just through that from top to bottom, more or less. So on the right-hand side, we have 2 DC ports, so DC1 plus minus and DC2 plus minus or minus plus, going from top to bottom. So these are MC4 Sträubli Evo Store connectors, and the plugs are of course included. We do deliver a 6 mil set and a 10 square mil set to use, the wire applicable for Australia. Most likely we would use the 10 mil setup in Australia anyways. Just below the MC4s, we do have the inverter communication. That's where you would connect the inverter communication towards your Gen24 or Gen24 Plus or Virtual. On the left-hand side, we have an in and an out RJ45 plug. That is if you have a multi-tower setup, and similar to your snappies, the snap inverters, if you know that from the old days, you do have some jumpers or bridgings in between as well. And don't forget, because the housing is metal, apart from the covers, you need to actually earth or ground the whole Reserva. So there is a connection screw with a minimum of 10 mil. So you just need to attach a cable lug with it or for it. Furthermore, to make the cabling dust-proof, as we all know, the RJ45 plug itself is not really dust-proof. Therefore, we put some dust-proof plugs or extensions more or less in the box. So you see the yellow extension here is for the inverter plug to make it 100% dust and waterproof. And for the in and out, if a multi-tower setup, you do have this more or less screw-on terminal covers directly for that.
Marcus, so the cabling, I think you can see on the left there, it's able to be tucked behind. So we've received some feedback on this, so people are very happy about that. So the cables aren't jutting out. There's a little gap there that allow you to tuck those cables.
Correct. That's also something I really like. It's especially nice in terms of the aesthetics. The battery will look good. You won't have any cables looking out, poking out, so you can neatly hide the cables pretty much behind the battery, which will also give you, in some occasions, some advantages in terms of the mechanical protection side of things. Wiring it to a GEN24 Plus or to a Verto Plus, you do have your usual battery plus terminal, battery minus terminal, and then you connect it to the pilot board with the Modbus RTU connection as shown here in the communication wiring. Pretty much all standard if you know already the Fronius environment and if you installed already Fronius products. Just one quick hint to be aware of the crimping. So if you use a patch cable on the Reserva side, please make sure to use the correct color coding on the other side. That's implicated here on the type B coloring code or the type A coloring code to have the right wires going into the right area to make the communication possible. The last bit of the wiring and hardware-wise setup are the covers. So there is a top cover, which can be pretty much slided on, and the side covers can be then used on the left and right-hand side. So it's a modular concept, no wires poking out anywhere on the side here. What I particularly like about the covers as well, they can be used either on the left or on the right-hand side. So you would always see on the top hand or on the top side, if it's the right battery mounting panel side cover or the left one. So that's also nice. So they can be interchanged and used wherever you get the best aesthetics out of it. Next one, let's look at the parallel stack and parallel setup. Pretty simple, as I explained it already earlier. So if you have a multi-tower setup, so the PCS, your GEN24 Plus, for example, data cable wise, you would go from the GEN24 into the inverter terminal. Make sure you have the termination plugs connected to the in port of the first battery and always connected to the out port of the last battery. Other than that, it's just a daisy chaining from out to in, from out to in, and so on and so on. The power connections itself. So you would go from your GEN24 Plus, for example, on the battery plus and minus terminals directly to the plus and minus terminals of the Reserva 1, and then going out on the second ports and just wiring them more or less through. We have here on the bottom also the space required clearances on top, which I think the next slides will show it a bit more in detail what we can do in terms of distancing in between them. And also another question might arise in terms of putting towers back to back or front to front. We're actually investigating and trying to work on a solution for a nice setup in limited space scenarios. Here with a bit more detail, pretty much the same picture and where the terminals go to give you a bit more of a visual aid on where everything needs to go. So it's a very simple installation. It's a cost-saving installation. It increases also your flexibility and stability and scalability of the product as well. Parallel stacks, sorry, in terms of spacing. As mentioned before, we do recommend 300 mil in between the towers. Why do we do that? We did do that just to have a very comfortable wiring and installation experience, that you can actually fit the screwdrivers in and so on and so on.
So as long as you can get in and out to install it and service it, it's fine, right, Marcus? That's basically the main thing.
100%. So you could also go a little bit closer if you want to. So we do have an example of 150 mil clearance. So if you have a 2-tower setup, you would end up with a 300 mil recommendation with 2.4 meters. But if you go a little bit closer, if you feel confident that it's not a problem to go in with your screwdriver and wire everything in, you could, for example, go to 150 mil, which would end up in a 2.1 meter setup.
Cool. And Markus mentioned that we are investigating that solution of having batteries in front of each other, like that way, so to save space in certain situations. For those that want to find out more on that topic, as we get more information, obviously, just reach out to your relevant state manager. So any installers in New Zealand, that's me. You can contact myself, or even Taspac over there would have an idea as well. We'll be advising them too.
Absolutely. Thanks for that. Yeah, reach out as soon as we have a solution. We'll make that public, and our colleagues would know where to get it and how to use it, especially. Looking at a 3-tower setup, so same goes. 3 towers, we would end up in 3.5 meters if we use the recommended clearances. If you go a bit smaller, it would be 2.9 if it's comfortable, and depending on the setup. You could also go wider depending on the house setup and where the battery is installed. In a full 4-tower setup, we would end up at 4.6 meters with the 300 mil recommended spacing, or with just 3.7 meters in 150 mil setup. So let's have a look at one of my favorite things, the ease of commissioning.
Yeah, this is definitely something that a lot of people are happy about when we've mentioned it. So essentially no separate battery app, very fast and simple commissioning process, it looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. You just pretty much, flick the breaker on, push the start button, and ensure that your GEN24 Plus or your Verto Plus is on firmware 1.36.1 or higher. Again, there is no battery app needed, no separate app you need to download, log in, install or anything. You would just commission the battery with your normal solar start app, for example. So once the battery is installed, you would just select the Fronius Reserva in the setup, and then set the other settings. For example, if the battery can charge from other sources, etc. Please ensure that the firmware is updated. That's nice and very straightforward.
So essentially, if you don't have it on that firmware, you're not going to be able to see Fronius Reserva as an option, right?
Correct. It would not be visible, the Reserva. That's why, you can update now with remote control, or in general, you can remote, a couple of days before you actually go to the install, turn on the AC on the inverter, turn on DC, commission the battery through the web UI or through Solar Start, add the battery throughout components, and you're pretty much ready to roll.
Nice.
So adding a new module. So further down the track, customer decides, I need a bit more storage maybe. If you want to add more modules, we also thought about that process. So it's very easy, which is called the service mode. So you go into the UI and pretty much set up the service mode. So what the service mode would do.
So very, very easy to add a module down the track.
Yes, super easy. So what the service mode would actually do, so all the modules come delivered at a 30% SOC. So the service mode would make sure that all modules are charged or discharged to 30% SOC, that you can just, go on site, add the module, turn off the service mode, and then have the new battery setup running.
Cool. And are there any restrictions on adding on a module that, can you do it anytime in the future, or can you not do it after a certain time? I remember customers asking me about this in the past regarding BYD. So yeah, can you speak to that, please, Markus?
Yes, of course. There's no super hard limitation or harsh limitation or something we would, prohibit battery modules to be added, but just something to keep in mind. Within the first 2 years, the modules would operate at the same SOH. So that means if you before 2 years you add another module, you won't get any performance limitations on that. If you do add a battery module after 2 years, so we're not saying you can't do it, you can still add a module after 2 years, but please keep in mind that the new battery module will operate at the lowest SOH, so state of health, of the remaining stack. So it wouldn't perform at 100% capacity due to the setup and how it's realized, but it's still possible.
Yeah, okay, thanks. All right, so hopefully you can see my screen now.
Yes, I can.
Yeah, okay, awesome. All right, so this section is essentially on the strengths and features of the Reserva, especially important for those that are wearing both the install as well as the sales cap. So looking at the feature overview, we've covered the first 2 points. So modular storage, you can retrofit and add on more as necessary. And then when you've got multiple stacks, there's quite high storage capabilities as well, so pretty flexible for different energy needs. You got these high charge and discharge rates, particularly when paired with the SIMO GEN24 Plus. You can have up to 11.26 kilowatts. This will actually be even higher with the Verto Plus series. Look forward to that coming out. The easy and fast commissioning. So yeah, something that a lot of people will be happy about. It's almost like there is none in terms of the commissioning process. So it's a very easy. You've got the LED status on the front, essentially shows the charge status, etc. So we'll show you that in a little bit more detail soon. We've got some battery functions that help with getting the most out of the system, and from an energy management point of view. That's strict data security, European data security, and then lastly, the single source manufacturer. So some people have been asking for us to release a battery for a long time now, and many people just want everything under the one umbrella, like a one-stop shop for support. So now they have it. All right, so yeah, in terms of some of the battery functions that are there, so the so-called dark start or black start, functions, so that if the battery is say depleted during a backup scenario overnight, in the morning when there is sunlight, the inverter will be able to charge up the battery, and then will be able to perform as normal with its normal self-consumption, or adding to self-consumption on site, etc. So that is there. We've got the battery control feature, which is a feature within the SolarWeb app. So it just needs to be on one of the later firmware versions, and then essentially using that function, you're able to charge up the battery to its maximum state of charge, either 100% by default, or if it's been at a lower, for say 90% state of charge, if that's what you've set it at, that's what it will go to. And then it will lock it for 24 hours unless you press the unlock button there. So that's in case there's an upcoming storm, or perhaps some planned grid maintenance going on, or for some other reason you want to lock the battery and make sure that it doesn't just get used in normal use, to save it for a backup scenario. So that's there. And then the time of use feature as well. So that's where you can set maximum charge or discharging limits. You can put in a charging or discharging range on different days and different times for those days. And you can set various schedules as needed to have the battery working the best for that particular customer. And the customer can also do that as well if they go into the inverter interface. So that can be done remotely as well via the remote configuration function via SolarWeb. So the LED status I mentioned before, so you can see if it's charging, discharging, what the state of charge is, and you can check that really easily without even having to open the app. So even a kid could go into the garage and come back out and say, "Oh, Mum, but the battery's at 50%." It's very easy to see that. Then the data security topic, so we just want to really reiterate that your customers' data is in very safe hands. So all the data remains in Europe, and there's very high security standards. So data security is becoming a really big topic these days, right? And especially from what I hear within the commercial sector. So Marcus, I'm not sure what you've heard about that, but it's there's a lot of people talking about it. And I was just across in New Zealand recently for CEANS, and it came up in conversation a couple of times as well.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we're ISO 27001 compliant with regular external audits and penetration tests on the data security side. So as you mentioned, all data stays within Europe. So we're very confident that it is a very secure product, and doesn't give away the customer's details or whatsoever we see out there in the World Wide Web. Plus on top, we have a global support in multiple languages and multiple time zones to support you if you have any questions or any concerns whatsoever about the data security of our products.
Yeah, fantastic. In terms of monitoring and management, so for those of you familiar with SolarWeb, our monitoring platform, so all the monitoring for the Reserva will still be within that platform. So when you consider the full ecosystem, battery, what pilot, own pilot, if you have it as well, you can see what's going in real time. You can also see historical data, etc. And then you can also use the analysis tab for those of you that are digging into the technical details to see other values there as well. Marcus mentioned that 24 hour support, multiple time zones, etc. So because we've got everything now under the one roof, everything's coming from the one source, from a single source, you have very comprehensive troubleshooting, and we'll be able to support you even in different languages as well, not just different time zones. And then for outside of phone hours, etc., you can also get online support through Solar SOS. So to wrap it up, a summary here. So the Reserva is essentially meant for homeowners, residential and small commercial. That's the target group. It's got a really slim profile. So it's one of the slimmest batteries on the market. And for those of you that have seen it, one of the dummies that are out there at the moment, display units, you can definitely see that. It's a comment that I get from most people that look at the display unit. So yeah, very slim profile, and it'll fit in a lot of tight spaces. You got that modular storage and large storage capacities when you have multiple stacks as well. The high charge and discharge rates, particularly on three-phase. Very simple commissioning process. The strict European data security standards that we adhere to. There's battery functions which help with energy management, etc. The integration in SolarWeb, so holistic monitoring solution. And then lastly, that single source for manufacturing, so your one-stop shop for everything in terms of high quality service and support. So that brings us to the end. Please feel free to put in some questions in the chat if you haven't already, and Marcus and I will start to look at those. If you do love what we do and you have enjoyed this webinar and yeah, you want to show your support for us, we would really, really welcome a positive Google review. So feel free to scan that QR code. I'll leave it up for a little bit, and you can put in some nice comments, hopefully, for us. All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you so much.
There's one on the CEC listing, Marcus.
I love that.
That's
the best question. So the product is already fully CEC listed. So that's beautiful. So we just pretty much wait for it to come to the country.
Marcus did a lot of work to get that across as well. So thank you very much, Markus.
Cool. I think one very common question was as well, if we do share the content and the recording of the webinar.
Yes, there will be the slides that go out, but then we should also have the recording. Unless there was some bad technical issue with the recording, it should be up on YouTube shortly.
One other question, the battery, if the battery can be installed and exposed to rain, of course it can. Sun is the more driver, so we're not able, or you shouldn't install the battery where it's exposed to sun, but rain is not a problem because it's IP65 protected.
Frank had asked about installing 2 stacks of, say, 2 batteries, and then can you add extra modules to each stack? So yes, that would be possible. They just need to be equal sizes. So when you have parallel stacks, they need to be the same size.
The configuration in tariff settings and charging and grid charging can be done remotely, of course, yes. And one other question from Glenn was if it comes with the wall brackets. Yeah, it comes completely with all the required wall brackets per battery module, the brackets in between, and all the required side covers and top covers. Another great question I can cover from Wayne is if the temp max is -20, but best operated in between 15 and 30, what happened to the warranty if working lower temps like South New Zealand and so on? So we wouldn't void the warranty, just below or above the recommended temperature range. The battery would not charge or discharge. That's just the limitation in terms of what physically the battery can do, and where we get the best performance would be in this 15 to 30 degrees window.
And there's another question that's somewhat related about that. What is the degradation when we go above 2,000 meters above sea level, and is that linear?
So the battery can't actually be installed above 2,000 meters. The operation instructions, I had a quick look at it, says the battery must not be installed or operated at more than 2,000 meters above sea level. There is one question regarding the warranty of the module and BMU. So we offer a 10-year warranty with 70% SOH after the 10 years. Chris had another question. When will be the data sheet and brochures shared? I think they're all online to my knowledge. Pat, can you speak to that?
Yeah, that's all online now. Somebody's asked about if you have a BYD stack, can you add on a stack of Reserva to the same Gen24 Plus? So that's not really going to be possible. You'd have to continue with BYD for that particular inverter.
There's also one question from Niram. In terms of connecting Gen24 Plus 10 kilowatt, would we use one MPPT for the battery? No, we have a dedicated battery port in our Gen24s and Inverter Pluses, which you can use for the battery. So they're not going to be used for anything else.
Someone had asked about AC coupling, particularly for inverters, like the snap inverters, which aren't hybrid inverters. And so essentially what you could do there is add on a Gen24 Plus, put on the Reserva on it. You don't need any panels on the Gen24 Plus for it to function, and then you could AC couple the Reserva in that way.
What size DC cable is recommended? So we do have MC4 Stäubli Evo 2 connectors in the box, 6 mil and 10 mil. So usually you would use in Australia the 10 mil DC cable size.
Neil asked about regarding backup, what additional equipment needs to be installed. You'll need emergency power supply switch, so like a contactor and a relay. you'll need a smart meter in that system. There's a whole guide on doing an application guide on doing full backup, and also for PV Point Advanced as well, which is our other backup solution, and PV Point. So Neil, I can send you through those guides so you can have a deeper dive on that. And we can also have a chat if you have any further questions. Somebody asked about the date for New Zealand. It's in this case, it's the same as Australia. It's going to be October. So all seems to be going well. Unless there's any pirates on the sea, we should be okay. So yeah, we're just waiting for everything to land, but we should be good. So somebody, oh, it's Jack. Hey, Jack. He'd asked about retrofitting modules and that you need to synchronize the state of charge for the existing and new modules. I'm not sure if that was before you asked that before the service mode slide, but yes, essentially you will need to do that. It's very simple. You do that in the Inverter Web UI with the click of a button, essentially. So it'll calibrate those so they're all 30%. G'day, Tim. You've asked if there's any changes to the setup of blackout protection. So in terms of setting up, I guess you mean like full backup and how you, I guess, separate from the grid, etc. The setup will be essentially the same. You'll still follow the same instructions in the backup guide. Might be a few, because I think we've been jumping around these questions. So there might have been some that we missed. I will go through them afterwards anyway and see if we missed any and come back to you, but we've gone a little bit over time. So we will wrap it up here. If you do have any other further questions, you can always ask your relevant state manager or myself if you're in contact with me, or you can put them to pv-training-australia@fronius.com. and we will get back to you. But yeah, apologies if I did or we did miss any questions in this chat, but we'll review them all and make sure that we have answered everything or get back to you. All right, so we'll leave it there. Thanks again, Markus, for joining us. And
pleasure.
Yeah, thanks everyone for joining us on this afternoon. I hope you have a lovely end to your day, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you, guys. Have a good one.